What's up?
What's up, man? How's it going?
Hi. Good. How you doing? This is Game Plans episode 7. It's been a while.
It's been a minute. Yeah, we've been a minute since we've had one, but a lot of life to catch up on, a lot of different things to catch up on. It'll be good to bring everybody up to speed.
Yeah. I mean, of course, we talk every day um, about life and work and whatever, but um, it'd be good to sort of in long format chat about what we got going on, new things that have happened since the last episode,
Sure.
how it's affecting our business. Kind of go through the pros and the cons and how we're navigating it all.
Yeah, man. I'm excited. I'm
So,
excited. This will be good.
yeah, so you're in a different office.
I am. Yeah, I'm in a home office. I'm in a different zip code, a different area code. Um, yeah. For anybody that isn't living under a rock, I moved to Windermere, Florida, which is a suburb of Orlando, back in July. So holidays were a little interesting this year. I've told the story a few times. Like the kids were swimming on Christmas, so that was new.
That's nice.
It's been exciting. I've got an opportunity to grow my business, grow the brokerage, and just kind of expand, which has been challenging but also fun all at the same time. So it's been good, yeah. But yeah, home office now, which is totally new to me, and almost 15 years of doing loans, I've never worked from home. I've always been at the office, and I've always been an office body. So this has been a new challenge and routine in and of itself.
So, what's the biggest difference for you in that working from home versus working in the office? Pros and cons.
Um, I work more now because it's just I walk in the other room where I don't have the commute. So that's probably been the biggest difference. I will say it has helped in a lot of instances in that, like, what's the best way to describe this? Where, I kind of structure my day very rigidly around, depending on the day, 5:30, 6:30. I'll, you know, detach for about an hour, hour and a half. And then once Tiff and the kids go to bed, I'll come back in for an hour and just work on stuff like on the business type stuff, structure and scripts and whatever else. So that's you know honestly been helpful just because in the phase that I'm in with the business and the growth and the scaling and everything. Like, you know to me everything kind of works in seasons, right? Like there's certain seasons. That's why I don't believe in work life balance. It's like a harmony,
Hmm.
because you'll never have things perfectly balanced. Like one season works heavy, one season's life's heavy, which you could speak to this in the last 12 months.
Sure.
But like sometimes, you're in a 3, 4 month spell where it's like, hey, it's like 80% work and 20% personal. And then certain things happen where it's that scale flips and it's like, okay, well, maybe it's 70% personal and 30% work or whatever the percent is. But having the setup that I've got now has lent itself to conveniently allow me to harmonize those a little bit more, which I can't really complain about.
Yeah, I don't really
But how
believe
about
in
you?
work. I don't really believe in work-life balance either. I'll agree with that point. To me, it's um, especially my business, but together it's something that is seasonal first and foremost. There's also macro dynamics that happen where we're just, you know, less busy some years than others, or more busy, some years and we got to buckle down and make hay while the sun's shining.
Sure.
So there's that aspect to it where you can't really um, think about work-life balance or consider that
Agree.
in a way. Um, I look at it more of a what needs to be done, what are my dreams, what can I fit in, and then how do I balance that with respect to my family and my personal life
Sure.
and what my needs are. Um, and I think it's more about respecting my family than anything else, and giving time to them and giving time. Right now, we just had our third son in May, and Calvin. And to me, uh, giving respect to my family and spending the time with them as my wife needed help, my son needed um, just a set of hands as he was, you know, uh, not in daycare, not in anything. He's after he was born. Just trying to give to that and uh, get to know him, help him out. It's been really great. So I think that's an important thing to understand. And then, I took it really simple from a business standpoint from May to September. And then I was able to start sort of working my way back into full swing um, over the last 3, 4 months. And really excited about where I am now. Business is still going great. Um, got a lot of iron in the fire for
Yeah,
2026. So starting off the year really strong, which is super exciting. I think the market's starting to let loose a little bit as well, which
I agree.
um, our team has seen some a lot of activity in the first couple weeks of the year,
Mm.
which is exciting. With interest rates coming down and everything like that, I think it's going to be a great year. Um,
No, I agree. It's going to be interesting, but when we're shooting this, obviously Trump announced his directive to, buy with 200 billion um, in mortgage-backed securities. We'll see what if that actually comes into fruition, actually happens or not. It happens or not, but the market has reacted, which has been very favorable for rates. So I'm sure that's spurred quite a bit of activity. And I know, like even just this weekend, like I had one go into contract, 30,000 over, super short close. So it seems like, and do I think that'll continue for the year? Like in all actuality, probably not at that level. But it's like first weekend, everybody's out. You know, everybody's hot to trot. Things are on the market.
it's
It's just
early.
funny how just like a couple of weeks just completely changes the dynamic, and everybody's like, "Oh no, I got to buy it right now." And it does lend itself to show like everyone who's just speaking through the fall, like, "Hey, now's a great time to try to find a deal." Not many, as many people are working and looking, and then 2 weeks later, it's like right, right back up to the roof. So um, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out during the year. It's I don't know. I think it'll be a good year. I think it'll be a solid year, especially for people who have the habits and the processes in place. And you were talking about, you know, um, work life harmony or balance or whatever people want to call it, and you being there for your family. And there's something, it's actually on a coaching call I was on this morning. And, some people set goals, some people set goals that are more habit. So when you look at goals, there's results related, like I want to close this many units, do this much volume, make this much money, whatever. There are one step up from that, which are a lot better, which are like habit based goals. Like, hey, I am going to do this every day at this time. I'm going to do this every day at this time. I'm going to go to the gym every morning, right? And then there are identity goals, like I am a this or I am a that, and it's like kind of a tiered system. And when you start to frame it that way, you know, what I hear you saying is like, I am a good businessman, I am a good father, and I am a good husband, and those are what take you to the next level, because now you're rooting what you do in who you are and not some kind of result that you're
I
trying
love
to
that.
get.
Yeah, I love that.
Um,
Those are the pillars that hold everything up.
I mean, if you don't have that and you don't have an identity, what you end up doing is just chasing things all the time. Like, maybe it's a certain client that you probably shouldn't work with, or a certain person that, this transaction is going to go bad, or maybe it's somebody in your circle that you got to cut out, but you keep them in for whatever reason. But as soon as you can kind of get focused and really tied down to what is my identity, like who am I, then all of those other things kind of just fall into place. And now the goals and the targets that you have aren't so hard because it's a part of just who you are, not like some, number or statistic that you're trying to, necessarily hit.
Yeah, I love that. And it gives you an attitude as well. It gives you an attitude to start every day
100%.
with. Um, and I believe attitude is one of the most important pieces of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Positive
Totally agree.
attitude and work ethic oriented and staying busy oriented, I think is are crucial aspects of that. As long as you keep your eye on that, um, you're going to go a long way. I think if you sit around and you're doing something that is lazy or you shouldn't be doing or is taking up your time, and you can identify that, I think that's part of the attitude piece as well.
100%. Yeah,
So
you brought up positive attitude, and I'll let you get to your point. This is something I read last year. Made our whole company read it. It's called The Energy Bus by John Gordon. Just sitting here on my desk.
book
Um,
recommendations. Here we go. I love it.
um, the Energy Bus is awesome. It's 10 rules to fuel your life, work, and team with positive energy. And John Gordon's books are all really good. They're all business books, but they're written from like the vantage point of like a fictional narrative.
Okay.
So it's not like overly kind of preachy business type book. So it's like a fictional story, and he's weaving the business principles into a fictional story. So it makes them easier to read, and also most of them are a lot shorter, like 80 to 150 pages.
So
Um,
less tactile, more metaphoric.
yeah, so it's easy for anybody to grasp because I mean, I like business books, but most people won't pick up a business book because it's like as soon as you read, like, hey, I don't need a lecture. But what's awesome about it is just what you spoke on is your the foundation of your day, your business, your life, home, work, whatever. It really does just start with that positive energy that you put out there, and it actually goes in the book into some research around like how that impacts all facets and aspects of your life. But it's a really good book. Um, I won't ruin it, but I highly recommend. Our whole company read it, and I think when we had our year end meeting, everybody was required to read it ahead of time, and then we just kind of dove through the book and just key takeaways. And whenever you lead a group of people and you do something like that, you kind of have this thought in the back of your mind, like I really hope everybody plays along and isn't like, you know, this is stupid. I'm not reading this book.
Yeah.
I'll cliff
ChatGPTing a
notes before. Yeah,
synopsis. Yeah.
exactly. But no, everybody actually played along and read it and had some good takeaways, and it was kind of eye opening for a lot of people. And we had some like it was a great meeting because we had some vulnerable moments, and uh, one of the things in there is like your day, your business, your life is like your bus, and you're the driver of your bus, right? And one of the rules is like you can't let energy vampires on your bus. And there were a couple people that like admittedly so were like apologetic to the group because they're like, hey, I'm really sorry, I've been the energy vampire. um,
Interesting.
and so like it was nice to get in like an intimate setting of just like 8, 9, 10 people in a group. Everybody read it and everybody shared and got a little bit vulnerable. And it was good, but I'd highly recommend it to anybody.
All right. So I'm going to shift back a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about your move to Florida
Mm-hmm.
and tell me about, you and I have talked about it a little bit, but tell me about how it came about and why and sort of what that does for you, your family, your business, etc.
Sure. So there's a little bit of a backstory to this. Um, and so this it actually starts in the realm of just like personal stuff because this would have been back in 2022. I came down to Orlando. So my wife and I have this agreement with one another that for birthdays, anniversary, Christmas, Valentine's Day, we don't get each other gifts. And we have like an agreement where like you just go do something for yourself that you want. That's like, we'll spend a little bit more money, right? Because we just cut out all the, 5 different things. So what I would do once a year is that year I came down and did a golf school. And it was like my little trip. I came down, and at that trip, I met a gentleman. His name's Curtis. He and I hit it off. He was helping the guys run the golf school. And through him, the following year when I came back, he had introduced me to someone else who the gentleman's name's Phil Mancuso. He happens to be an executive for EPM, which is a lender that we broker to. So I came down the next year for just some lessons. Actually had lunch with Phil, got to golf with him at Isleworth, which is like a very exclusive club. So that was just the experience in and of itself. Like we were in the stag room and the men's locker room, and there's like Payne Stewart's locker. Like it was so super cool. But through Phil introduced me to a Compass agent. Her name is Tony Cafferty. In would have been summer of 2024 when I was down here. I met with Tony, and at that point, to rewind a little bit, I think it would have been summer of 23. We considered a move to Florida. We actually even looked at some homes in Sarasota, and I don't even know if I've shared that with you. Maybe I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've very few people I've even shared that with, and it just didn't work. Like the timing didn't work. We didn't like it, whatever, and it just kind of died for a year. And I, kind of in my heart of hearts, still wanted to move, but I just was like, oh, whatever, it'll, work. If it's supposed to happen, it'll work itself out. And I said, fast forward, Phil introduced me to Tony. I came down, and when I came down that trip, I had lunch with Tony, and her and I hit it off. Like we had lunch for, like 2.5, 3 hours. Had a great conversation. And then she really went out of her way to just introduce me to realtors in the area. She's super well connected, awesome personality. Anybody you meet, like, oh, Tony, I love Tony. Yeah, sure. So she's introduced to people. I'm having meetings. So then that turned into like every 6-7 weeks, I would just fly down and set up business meetings. So I'd come down on like a Wednesday morning, leave on a Friday night, just quick in and out, have like 8 to 10 face-to-face appointments, go back. Started to get, a little bit of traction, deal here, deal there. She actually helped me put on my first event here. I did like a realtor event at a Top Golf, and that would have been, so I met with her in June of 24. I did that in August of 24. I had like 15 people come,
Nice.
which I thought was a huge success. So through the fall, winter, just kind of continued to come down every like 7 weeks or so. And at that point, I started to really want to do it, but my wife didn't want to. And it would have been February of 25, about almost a year ago. I was late getting home from the office one day, and she had left a letter, and I actually still have it sitting on my desk in the office in Columbus. A letter from an agent who had basically just farmed the neighborhood. They had a client. Our house, we lived on the course at Kinsale, and at the time, like nothing really came up on the course. So they sent a letter, hey, I've got a client, a member, really wants to get a house on the course. I'm assuming they sent it to multiple people on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And when I woke up in the morning, I looked at Tiff, and I was just like, hey, I didn't think you wanted to move. Like, why'd you leave this out? And then in the moment, she goes, I've been praying about this a lot the last week or so, and what we should do. And then we just got that letter in the mail, just out of the blue. So,
Yeah.
we kind of had a conversation about it, and so to make a long story short, it really was, in a way, just felt like it was supposed to happen. And I'd already laid the groundwork to make connections, and, people like you and, Jeff and Maren and your team, and even a lot of the other agents that I work with. I mean, this is going on year 15 in mortgages for me, and everybody that I've worked with for, 8, 9, 10 plus years. Like, I don't have a lot of fallout, if you will. Like, I think, and you can speak to this, like I genuinely do make real connections and have real relationships with all of my agent partners. So I started kind of floating the idea around to feel like, hey, if I leave, are you going to abandon me? Um, so it just created an opportunity where I could scale and grow and be here more, quote unquote, full time, where I can start getting more face to face, belly to belly with people and grow this part of the business out. And then now I go back to Ohio much more frequently than I did because I would come down to Florida like every 7 weeks or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in Ohio once a month now for a week at a time because the office is still there. So I just kind of flipped um, the split and just frequent Ohio much more often. And it's so far it's been awesome. I've got to meet people. The transition's gone even better than I probably would have guessed. I've got to re-review all the numbers, but like I mean, the back half of last year, I mean, it was a closing or two every month here. Um, which is awesome for having just got here in July.
Mm-hmm.
And we're consistently getting leads. I just got another contract here this morning. Um, so it's created a cool opportunity to create a life for myself and my family, and just do something. I don't know, just do something out there. Like how many people? I don't say this from a an arrogant standpoint. Like I've built a pretty successful business for myself. What not many people would be like, okay, let me just go ahead and move 7 states away, and quote
Yeah.
unquote jeopardize all of that. But it's actually gone even better. Like I'm still meeting new realtors in Columbus when I'm up there. Like I'm gonna be in town this week. I leave tomorrow morning, and I've got 4 appointments set up with people, brand new people. So it's like it's been really cool how it's opened your eyes, especially in the modern world that we live in. That like that the world's not that big. Like it's been cool. It's been really cool.
So what's the biggest difference between the two markets from a operating standpoint?
Um, they're actually fairly similar for the most part. I had a call, excuse me, last week with the guy who does all my video editing for all my social media stuff, and we talked about this a little bit. And the agents, like the Midwest, just in general, has a little bit of a different speed to it, a little bit more aggressive, but not much. The markets are very similar, people very similar. I will say, for the most part, everybody here has just been um, super receptive. Um, so I really can't complain about that at all. There's a lot more of a luxury presence here than there is in Ohio. Like the average price point's just higher. Um, which I'm not going to complain about that, but it does create some different dynamics there. But like for the most part, it's really not that much different, to be honest with you. The transactions still kind of work the same way. Um, everybody for the most part, it's interesting. Most people who would be in the position that I'm in are probably new and don't have
Mm-hmm.
the experience that I've got. So it's interesting to do this and meet people and do it from the vantage through the lens of the experience that I've got. Um, but it's interesting to just see the different dynamics from Ohio, to hear how like different vendors and realtors communicate and work with one another versus other places. I'd say maybe that's some of the biggest difference. It seems like, and maybe just from my vantage point, I haven't come across it yet, but it seems like everybody here works together much better and
Oh,
isn't trying to
really?
get one up on. Yeah, it doesn't seem like everybody's just trying to get one up on somebody else all the time. Um, but I mean, again, a small
I would have
sample
thought
size.
the opposite.
No, it hasn't been that way at all. Everybody's been pretty cool for the most part, and it has been much more chill, I guess. If you, I don't know if that's the right way to say it.
Do you mean from a realtor standpoint or a everybody involved standpoint or like what?
Yeah, I think everybody involved for the most part.
Okay.
Now,
Fascinating.
granted, I haven't had anything. I'm trying to think through all that we've closed. I haven't had anything super complicated either from a deal standpoint. Like everything's been pretty straightforward. Um, so if I'm trying to think through. We've made a couple deals happen for people that otherwise wouldn't. That certainly helps. Um, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, everybody for the most part, it's been very similar, very very similar. markets are as of right now are very similar. I would say Ohio's probably a little bit hotter, um, especially in some of the certain suburbs where Florida is like much more of a buyer's market right now. You see things go for well under asking, a lot more seller credits, things like that. Um, but as far as the relationship dynamics, it's I would say Columbus market a little bit hotter, relationship dynamic here a little bit easier. Everybody's a little more friendly, more willing to engage and converse, especially for me. Like when I reach out, I'm a lender calling a realtor, and it's like, hey, what do you want?
Hmm.
Um, and he, here, people answer their phone more. They just do. I call, if I were to like cold call, which I don't cold call at this stage of my career anymore, but if I were to cold call like 30 realtors in Columbus right now, I would be willing to guess like three answers, 3 to 5. If
Wow.
I did 30 here, I bet like 15 of them pick
Wow.
up. Just that more people, I don't know, again, could be completely random, but it just seems like more people just pick up the phone when you
Interesting.
call, which is, no, at least they don't immediately hang up on you. I don't know, maybe there's a little bit of like Southern hospitality or whatever, but there's not an immediately like, hey, click, F off, go away type of thing. At least they'll engage you for a couple moments. So it makes it a little bit easier.
And from an agent's perspective, is it like individual brokerages? Is it bigger national brokerages that you're working with, or is it, you know, is it like full-time agents or part-time agents, or what's the dynamic there? What's the agent profile you're running into more often?
There's a lot of Compass is really big here.
Okay.
Um, Compass has a really big presence here. Um, yeah, and otherwise it's a lot of the same Keller, Coldwell, Century 21. Like EXP. There is a much bigger EXP presence here. So I would say you get a little bit more. You don't get as many boutique, at least up to this point that I've seen. But it's been more, you know, box names, big box names that I've come across. Which is, I don't know. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear your opinion on this. Like, I don't. I feel like the brand or the brokerage comes into play more in certain market niches, like in the luxury space or like maybe in an investment space or something along those lines. But I think for the normal run of the mill, hey, I'm buying my first house or I'm buying my next place, I don't know that the name on the sign, the company name on the sign, ultimately matters that much. And I probably could catch some heat for saying that, but that's just um, my take. I think it's the person and the relationships and the brand you build and the presence you build online. I feel like that goes, entirely much further than any type of you know company that's going to be backing you. But that's just kind of my take on it.
I think it's more like I think of it more from a neighborhood specific type of thing, and that's probably not intrinsically tied to the name on the building. But there is that like certain brokerages, especially some of the smaller ones that are successful, really pound certain neighborhoods. I mean, just
Yep.
like let's just say like New Albany Realty as an example does a ton of New Albany. I mean, they're just really strong, and they're a smaller, brokerage. They have the Rains Group and things like that that are known for certain areas. As a majority stakeholder in those markets. But um, uh, the only aspect I would say is that you do see, let's say, different brokerages, agents of different brokerages that are in that like middle of the road type of business,
Mm-hmm.
not producing a ton, um, develop certain personality traits that are consistent across the board. Um, and that's sort of a top down, trickle down type of thing that you see. So there
Yeah.
is a little bit of that like meme where you can sort of jokingly peg the type of agent
People
that
into
is
a box. Yeah.
yeah, that is at each brokerage, or you see with a name coming through on the contract, and you know sort of what to expect if you haven't met the person before.
Sure.
There's a
Have
little
you
bit
seen
of
one floating around that equates them all to a dog breed?
that. I don't think so, but that's
No,
yeah,
that was really funny. It's like it has like the brokerage, and then it has like a picture of a dog, and it has like a description of like how the brokerage ties to that dog breed. And it's hilarious. Um, and as you know, when you read through the descriptions, it's kind of comedically accurate.
yeah, yeah,
It's pretty
absolutely. I
funny.
mean, there's a bit of a stereotype involved.
Yeah, you're like, nah, not
Um,
that far off.
yeah, and that's not always the case, of course, but um, there's times that we definitely identify it. But for me, being at a regional brokerage, um, there is a level of me personally identifying with the top approach, right?
Sure.
And so believing in mission statements and values and uh, their objective, and then the way they operate their business.
Yeah.
Um, and so I would say that's the important piece of being connected with a certain brokerage. Um, some people think about it with regard to money, how much their commission splits and whatever. And um, to me, I think it's a little short sighted depending on how you operate your business.
Right. Right.
Uh,
No, I have this conversation with a Remax agent the because it's I like the dynamic we have in our conversations because we got like the realtor perspective, lender perspective, and for me, obviously, most of my conversations, I'm reaching out to some sort form of industry partner, primarily real estate agents, trying to provide value in a way that makes said individual want to do business together, trust me with their referrals and what have you, right? And it's interesting to see like what my counterparts, like everyone's different approach and what their sales pieces are, and what we were having this conversation about was like it started from a brokerage standpoint, because like when you get into splits and commissions and platforms and what I've found places just don't seem to provide anymore, which I feel like is where a lot of places are missing the boat, is there's no coaching, there's no development. And I'm not talking about like training, like how to run a listing appointment. I'm talking about like true coaching and business development. And if you can provide that for people and provide them like upward trajectory in their career, the split conversation to me becomes less important because you are now demonstrating a real value to care about that person and actually take a vested interest in their true professional development. And I just don't see that from many places. And so, like for me, when I go approach a realtor, since I spend a lot of money on coaching, like that's an area that I try to, not that I'm an authority figure, but here in the next 6 months, unless something falls apart, I'll be a coach within our coaching community. So it's just like a value add that I have that's, unique, you know, from, a lot of other my, I guess competitors, if you will. And it's something that most people don't get where they're at. Is any kind of like, hey, how do I script this conversation? How do I structure my week? How do I, theme my days, manage my time effectively? Like outside of like, the normal sit down of like, hey, let's make our business goals for the year, which is good. You should do that. But like, what's the system? What's the process behind all of this to help you actually grow? And the more you pour into other people and without some form of expectation of return, generally speaking, the greater your return actually is, anyways. And I feel like that's where a lot of leadership, both for real estate brokerages and even mortgage companies, um, they get off the track. It's like, hey, what can you do for me? What can I skim off the top, based off the business that you do that's going to make me money, as opposed to, hey, how can I just take you, Brooks, and breathe into you, pour into you, develop you, and you do more business, and then the byproduct of that is now I'm making more money. But the equation in most cases is reversed, where it's like, hey, how can I bring you on so I can just get a split and get something off of your deals? And
Yeah,
that's missed a lot.
I think there's so at least in our community, at least in Columbus, there has been more, let's say, groups of realtors that are across multiple brokerages that have popped up that are doing like group think tanks and group coaching and group accountability, um, and group learning, that is outside of, um, let's say, the traditional brokerage model. Um, and I think that's a result of exactly what you're saying. I think it's a result of, a lot of the bigger, or a lot of brokerages that, um, have stripped away things because agents, and this is, the agent's fault as much as anything, um, let's say during a certain time, were focused on just cutting their splits, and really focused, or there's a big group, maybe this is a big group of agents that are focused on cutting their splits. And so, a lot of brokerages have just stripped away what they're offering, in an effort to become more competitive in that way. And granted, there's more opportunity to be entrepreneurial with technology, and, tools are available to everyone across, whatever software, whatever internet, anything that you can come up with. I think there's just more opportunities for people to learn, but I think it's been an interesting thing because, to your point, uh, there's not enough focus on it, and I think that one of the ways to identify the agents that are really focused on learning and growth, and, um, how to expand their business, are meeting in the community of other realtors, and, outside of their brokerage, finding their group and being consistent about getting together. Um, we did that, in a way before you left, um, where we were meeting with people outside of just our
Sure.
specific business, but,
Yeah.
a group of business people, guys that we were having breakfast with.
Yep.
Um, and I think it's a really important thing to focus on. I think even within our team, my team, um, we had a group of agents that were sort of meeting consistently to talk about, um, accountability with each other, where our heads were at, what we could do better, um, just as a smaller group. I think it's such an important thing. Um, and I wish there was more focus on it. There's a lot of agents that don't know how to, you know, structure their business
There's a
to
lot of people
make
that don't
it.
know how to structure much of anything. And I don't say that to sound negative, but like nobody has any guidance. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, you know, hey, did you create a business plan? Like, well, did you sit down and like actually, do you know how to actually create a business plan and what that looks like and what it should look like and what should it include and action items and deadlines and steps and like, you know, just be a title doesn't make you a leader, right? Like I can put anything on my email signature. And that doesn't make you a leader. And to get people to follow you, you've got to pour into them. And to pour into them, you've got to have some form of vision for where you're going. And, you know, everybody, whether they'll admit it or not, wants some form of accountability. to what extent that looks like is different to everyone, right? But everybody who has a pulse that, does something similar to what we do for a living wants to be successful. Definition of success, person to person, obviously is going to look different. My version versus yours versus, everyone else is going to be different, but they still want to be successful. And in order to do that, you have to have something that you're bought into, that you're working towards. And that takes accountability. And most people are seeking it, like I said, in some form or fashion. But the problem is most people want to hold accountable without giving you a vision of what they're holding you accountable to or for, right? And that just creates discontent. Because like if you're on my team and it's, I'm just like constantly beating you with the stick, like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, but we haven't taken time, like I haven't invested in you as a person and your well-being. Like, hey, how's it going at home? How's it going with your wife and the kids? Like, you know what, actually Friday I want you to cut out early. You've been doing this, like you need to, you know spend some time with the family. Like, how about my piece of accountability is like, hey, once or twice a month you and your wife need to have a date night on the calendar. Like that's it. So I say all that to say accountability is something that's very, very important. And it's something that most people are actually seeking, but few people don't have the prerequisites to give it because they can't lead other people, because they can't lead themselves. And to lead other people, you have to lead. Nobody's going to follow somebody that can't lead themselves. Like I'm not going to take marathon training from somebody who's not run a marathon, or I'm not going to take diet advice from somebody who's, from somebody who's fat. I'm not
Right.
gonna, and on and on and on. But if you can demonstrate an ability to lead yourself, and somebody's like, that's someone I'm willing to follow, and then that person is willing to pour into other people, you can really, I think, create something special at a brokerage, at a mortgage company, at any business, that you have a place where people want to be around. That's when you start to create a culture. um, and to me, culture trumps everything.
Yeah, but I think like step one is sort of breaking it down a little bit is find your mentor, find your group that can have two-way conversations. Um, you know, say I have blessed with amazing mentors, and I think the other piece is then I have a group of people that I can have genuine conversations with about business, personal, whatever. Um, that's focused on, you know, I don't know what to do here. What do you think? What, bouncing ideas off. Um, and I think that that's really important for people to have and have access to curate around yourself is a group of people that um, is positive, is um, obviously you talked about not being, what's the bus analogy? What's the to your book?
Energy vampire,
Yeah, not being an energy vampire.
right?
Um, but also just sort of people that you can have conversations with about, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. This is where I'm thinking about taking the next step in X.
Sure.
Is this a good idea? How do you see it from an outside perspective? Whatever. I think that all that's just the most important piece, and it's not a hard thing to work on. And then once you
Not at all.
sort of foster that around you, continue to develop it around you, I think that that's where you create that growth environment.
I totally agree. And you a part of it is having the right circle of people and being at the right place and the right company. I mean, because there's of course certain offices, teams, brokerages, mortgage companies where probably over half the people there are energy vampires and they're miserable doing what they do. And like, you got to find the circle of people that you surround yourself with is obviously very, very important. That's like something I've been trying to really focus on, I don't have the book sitting here. It's in my car because I was reading at the gym this morning. Um, John Maxwell's 21 um, laws of leadership, and one of the laws is the power of your inner circle, and there was kind of depressing to do, but you go through and you answer these questions about your inner circle, and it really makes you question a lot of things because those things aren't like you know foo foo, right? Like those are real things, and if you're not around people heading in the same direction that you're, it's not to say that you don't have fun and you're a stiff, but like from a professional and just a developmental standpoint, like if you don't have the right people around you on a day-to-day basis that you're having conversations with that are breathing life into you, you're breathing life into them, like it over time will take a toll on you to the point that you don't even see it happening until it's already happened. And then that's a really hard hole to dig yourself out of. Once you get to that point, like unless you're truly committed to changing it, like that can be hard because then now you're talking about cutting a lot of people out and really revamping some things. So it's something that you certainly should keep a constant like watch on, and who am I allowing to impact or influence we talked about identity based goals, like is this person you know contributing towards the person that I want to become. Like if I want to be a good father and a good husband, I can't have a group of guy friends that every Friday want to go to the strip club. Probably going to conflict
Yeah.
somewhat with like
Yeah.
your identity or your vision for your life. If I, again, you can come up with numerous examples, but it just lends itself to like, oh well, they're longtime buddy, it's not that bad, or whatever, and then eventually it becomes a problem.
It always becomes a problem in my eyes. I I don't know if it was you or somebody else I was having a conversation with recently, but um, I learned this really early on in life, and it was a great lesson. It was me moving from Columbus to Denver to Chicago back here, um, and the opportunity to be who be myself. Um, and I think in high school you sort of, especially growing up, you sort of fall into a mold or fall into someone that other people perceive of you, and then um, I got to go to Denver and I didn't know anybody there. Had to make all new friends and got to be who I was. I got to be myself, and that was a huge gift for me, and my identity, and gave me a lot more confidence in who I was as a person, um, because I wasn't, stuck in people's perception of me when I was in, fifth grade or fourth grade or whatever. And then got to go to Chicago, and Chicago was um, a whole nother version of that. It was another opportunity to meet new people and be myself and who I was in my mid 20s. And um, then I came back to Columbus, and I only re-engaged with the people that were um, not energy vampires, not that were a positive piece of my life from childhood. There's um, lots of people that have moved back to Bexley, and nothing against Bexley, but it's a small area, and it really is, let's say, um, uh, there's just so many people I know there, right? And um, being outside of that, I get to grow and be who I am, and not um, feel constrained by dealing with the people that I didn't need to deal with, um,
Sure.
and get to make new friends and focus on those people that are the most powerful. I have a limited amount of time to be social and be uh, let's say communicating with people outside of work and family.
Mhm.
And so pouring that into the most important people in that circle that are, um, I can add value to and then can give value back to me,
Mhm.
um, is the most important thing to me. It's that gift of time and focusing on, making the most of that limited gift of time.
Sure. No, I agree. It's yeah. Really, relationships are tough. I would say with the move, that's probably been one of the most um, rewarding and unique things is like just finding an entirely new day to day circle of people that you're around. That's been not like hard, like meaning that like I can't make friends, but like it just like takes time, right? There's a comedian I watched this bit. It was really funny, and he talks about how much easier it is for kids to make friends than it is adults. Because like when you're a kid, you just walk up on a playground and you'd be like, "Hey, my name is Bobby, and I like fire trucks," and my name's Robbie, and I like guns, and then you're like, "You want to be my best friend?" And then that's it, and then you just run off and you're best friends. But when you're an adult, it's like, oh, we got to meet for coffee, and then we got to meet each other's spouses, and then like we're gonna get the families together. Like, and there's like this whole song and dance, and he was like, well, what would it be like if you just walked up to another adult and were like, "Hey, my name's Steve, and I like golf. My name's Brooks, and I like this. Like, hey, do you want to be best friends?" But it's yeah, that's been probably the most interesting piece of all this is it just takes time and figuring out people and who you want to be around, especially like you brought up kind of a little bit of a reset. Like this ad has provided a little bit of a reset in a way, and it's been very refreshing. Um, and you can get very easily caught up in feeling like this is going to come off and we talked about this recently, but it comes off of like as if you're trying to sound as if you're phony, but it's not from a phony place. But you have a certain role in it that you play on a day-to-day basis, and getting to like kind of completely wipe the slate clean, you can go into conversations with people from a completely different starting point and perspective than you otherwise would have. And it really is um, refreshing. And the one word you said that I wrote down is like you grow. And not everybody grows at the same pace. And sometimes you outgrow people. Some people don't
Mhm.
want to grow. And you there was a quote I posted on my Instagram the other day, and I have this note section of my phone that's just pages long because I have these things that just like I wish I could record. And whenever Elon develops the chip, it'll be interesting because like if you could if I could record my thoughts and the things that come into my head on a day to day basis. But it was you can't. It was this was the quote that I read, and it was that you can't fly with swans if you're surrounded by turkeys. And it's it's so true. It's so true because you will hit a ceiling in your growth, and whatever that looks like for you, and what well, obviously we relate a lot of this back to business, but there's so many different facets of your your life that plays into parenthood, being a good spouse, health, all of it matters. And all of those things ultimately all feed back into how you perform and how you produce and how you provide, from a business standpoint. Like it all starts at home. If things are screwed up in your personal life, most of the time they're probably screwed up at work. There's not many people that like, that there's that don't that dynamic isn't in play in that fashion. So
There's
um,
consequences
a
that
hundred
bleed
percent.
bleed back and forth.
You're not your full self when everything personally is not, and it's never going to be perfect. It's not to say that you're striving for some form of perfection, but if you don't have some form of harmony in your home life, or you're not healthy, you're miserable, you've got miserable friends, you don't spend time with your friends, um, you don't spend time with your spouse or your kids or whatever, like that all eventually at some form or another starts to bleed into work. Now you're miserable at work and now you're underperforming. I don't want to do these things just because I'm just grumpy today. Um, but it is,
We've seen,
it's just,
I'd say we've seen that a lot as, as let's use a um, politically correct term, dynamic as realtors' personalities are.
right.
um, we've seen the, let's say, extreme personalities take over um, across the board. People that are really just get, um, and it broadcasts itself in all sort of forms. But let's say agents that have gone off the deep end personally, and to a degree, it's like, should this person be a fiduciary for other people?
Yeah.
Um, and not to say that people can't, get better, but like in moments, it's like, oh my gosh, this person is got a
Sure.
severe alcohol problem or a severe, life event or
Right.
whatever. It's like, how can
No,
how can they adequately look out for the best interests of other people when they can't even look out for the best
sure.
interests of themselves in this moment? So,
Yeah. And
um,
a lot of people give great advice that they don't even take themselves.
mhm,
Right.
mhm,
Um, and we talk. A lot of things are just like what we do. I've started to like kind of reframe in my mind, like from our business, our families, our clients. Like a lot of what we do is a form of some form of leadership in a way, right?
mhm,
Or if
mhm.
you're going to be successful, like that's kind of the lens that you have to operate through. Like, how do I lead my clients? How do I lead my coworkers? How do I lead my team? And if you are, doing it from that vantage point and through that lens, you will never handle any situations from the standpoint of like what's in it for me. Like, hey, how do I, take these people, this person, whatever it is, and help lead them to a better outcome. And to do that, like I said earlier, like you've got to lead yourself. But I just I keep coming back to that this recently, just in a lot of stuff studying and reading that I've been doing is like we really are um, leaders more so than anything, and that leadership takes on um, different forms or different hats depending on the person.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in our business, we are guides, and that is a form of leadership. I think, um, what uh, he, to this conversation, I went to University of Denver and um, took classes in order to minor in leadership. And the two biggest parts of the leadership school um, were, uh, I mean, I think you would find really interesting. It had very little to do with um, traditional idea of leadership and like, you know, commanding people at the front of a rowboat
Right.
type of thing. The two biggest aspects of it were introspective, um, in learning about who you are yourself and what your skills are,
Sure.
what makes you a good leader, and how you can take those skills and become a good leader based on the skills that you do inherently have. Um, and so it was introspective first, and then the second piece was um, giving to others through the form of um, community service. And we had required community service as a piece of that as well. And it was 40 hours per quarter.
Wow. Okay.
Um, and so it was a big piece of that. And that
Right.
didn't, that's not a traditional concept of leadership either. It's um, the idea of giving to others without expectation, providing to
Yep.
others, and building a community. And so, it is a really unique way of sort of looking at a leadership training. It is
Hmm.
just removing the whole how do you manage people situation and make it about yourself, make it about where you can get better, what you're good at, and then
Sure.
giving to people without expectation. Um, I think is another piece that allows your influence and um, leadership to grow.
No, no, that's all good stuff, man.
You want
Um,
to talk? You want to talk real quick about goals?
yeah,
You
we
got
can touch
time?
on that. Yeah,
So,
they got 2 minutes.
okay, so let's talk about just quickly. Let's say biggest success of 2025, biggest goal of 2026.
I would say the biggest success of 2025 for me was like just all around the move. Like, you know, I had one of my best years I've had since I equate like 2020 and 2021 to like the steroid era in baseball. Like it's
Hmm.
just an asterisk on it. Like everybody closed the business. So that aside, because those 2 years obviously were like the best, but one of my best years I've had outside of that, in the midst of the move. So that was undoubtedly probably the biggest win. Business didn't really, or it didn't miss a beat, which um, I had kind of gone into it with an acceptance of like, hey, in the short term, like certain things might kind of falter. Certain things might not go according to plan, but it went. That was the biggest success of the year. The biggest goal for this year, gosh, is there's a couple that come to mind. Something really important for me, which you and I spoke about this a lot, is being um, named a coach here in May means will be a pretty cool accomplishment. I just so the way our coaching works is every 6 months, every semester, they kind of switch up the groups and switch up the coaches. So the group that I'm in now is with three other guys that are all also being coached to become coaches. So it's just only the four of us out of all the hundreds of people that are involved that are kind of fall into this group, right? And going into that call, I looked everyone up, looked up their numbers, like I'm sizing everyone up, right? And it's you get in a we talk about circles and talk about rooms you're in, and you talk about getting in a room of like high achievers, right? But just being in a group like that is it's like rewarding. So like I've never been one to of course I have my units and volume goals and all of those things, but like that's not um those are certainly very very important to me, but like these other little ancillary things just they carry more because like that's it's like a peer thing. So that's
Hmm.
probably my biggest goal for the year.
I think for me, um, 2025 was a year. I say two pieces of it. Um, First off, I think uh, was Calvin and our family. That's
Right.
a big piece. Having our third son, we're done. We're three boys is plenty.
Two more, you'll have
But
a whole starting five.
yeah, but I think having that aspect, that dynamic added to the family, has been amazing. It's been a gift, and being able to spend time with him and
Sure.
operate my business. I had an amazing year, production wise, and I really dialed it back, my prospecting and the amount of extra stuff I did during a portion of time, because it was really important to me to spend time with Calvin and help my wife, and while she's on maternity leave, and
Sure.
work through that whole piece. So
And I
that
commend
was
you for that, man. Like that's hard to do. It's one thing, like everybody's like, oh, you should do that. Like that's a hard thing to do, man.
it's
Is to
hard.
like, it's. I will tell you, it's probably easier to put your foot on the gas than it is to do, or sorry,
It's
it's
what
easier to put your foot on the gas than it is to do what you did.
it's way harder to break for me, and because as I gather momentum in my business, and it's hard to um want to give that up, and I do love what I do. So just pulling back on that, there was this
Sure.
and taking a pause, was mentally challenging in that way, but um really rewarding from a family aspect. And
Yeah.
2026, I think my biggest goal is to um continue to organize my business to save time, and allow for more, uh, adding more. My biggest goals are time blocking. Continue to implement time blocking in there. I've done uh, a piece of that where I'm putting everything, no matter what, in the calendar. Life has
I like
demanded
that.
that. Life has demanded that. Um, but I think just putting the routine on there is something that I'm gonna get better at this year. Um, I'm trying to work out more consistently. There wasn't time
Good.
for that between juggling, to be consistent about it anyway.
Good.
Juggling a baby and work, there was only very limited amount of time to work, and that didn't allow for much time to be consistent about doing the gym, and
Sure.
that's an important piece to me, as as it is you, I know. So
Yeah.
um, being able to time block so that I can have that time set aside and be consistent about it, is an important piece. So that's a big
People think it's a
focus.
constraining thing, and it's actually like I don't want to fill out a calendar, and I don't want to do this, this, and this, and this seems like so. Like it's actually very freeing. People look at it as like a just something else to do, and it's like this constraint on your life, and it's like no, actually, once you do it and commit to it, like it's going to take some time, and it's not a perfect science, but that's the one thing since I've started coaching, and I've like every month just dial it in a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, um, and it's super freeing. You're not missing anything by time blocking. Like, hey, you know what? I'm answering all my emails in 45 minutes. That's just when I'm doing it, and like you're not missing something in the next 45 minutes. You're not. And if it's super important, somebody will call you or text you and let you know.
Yeah, so I think that like what I've done over the last 6 months is organize my business, break it down into categories of things
Mm-hmm.
that I need to do and want to do. And that way I have a framework for what needs to be on that calendar, what needs to be time blocked, and then organize it in such a way that I can, I've built through Notion and some other platforms, buckets that allow me to be more in flow on the specific tasks when I get into them, so I can be more, um, less distracted, let's say, and more focused on get this stuff done, take less time, because I'm not jumping from in flow to out of flow, and it just drains everything, drains the time off of
You're
everything.
not being
So
reactionary.
yeah, so I've set the table for me to be really intentional about it, and that's the piece that I'm um, working on adding, that's going to bleed into some of the other smaller goals that I have. So
That'll help a lot of stuff. I love
yeah,
it, dude.
yeah.
Cool, man. Anything else you want to touch on?
I don't think, buddy. We can do another of these episodes soon and keep the
Sure.
ball rolling.
Yeah.
All right.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks everybody for watching. Come find us on Instagram, on socials.
Talk to you later.
Yeah. Good.
Peace.